Tony Kinnett.
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 Host of the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Let's get down to business.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
CYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Holy cow, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a wild day for the markets. A lot of up, a lot of down. The NASDAQ up just before the close of the bell in the 360s. The S&P up a little bit today as well. The Dow was roller coastering the entire time. And why? Because the president of the United States, Donald Trump, has enacted a series of trade negotiations and deals, sanction announcements with Saudi Arabia in his Middle Eastern trip, also discussing raising sanctions with Syria to begin normalizing relations. There is a major blitz by the Trump administration over in the Middle East. Here at home, the media is losing their mind over something that is rather old news, but the media is going to pretend that it's like brand new, never before seen breaking news. And this breaking news just so happens to be that Joe Biden was dead all along. Now, you might be wondering, hang on, wait a minute here. Wasn't Joe Biden dead all along? And it was like really public and we all saw it. And that's one of the reasons why he got pushed off a cliff. And then Kamala Harris ended up getting destroyed in the election. Why, yes. Yes. We did all know that. But the media is trying to play this as though they didn't participate in the cover-up, the active and overt cover-up. So Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson released a major book. So Alex Thompson is that Axios journalist who got up in front of the country at the White House Correspondents Association dinner and said, you know, we may have missed a few things, as though they weren't, you know, actively participating in the cover-up of the dead president of the United States. So the book Original Sins, called President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Jake Tapper is now running this big media campaign blitz, trying to pretend that he wasn't an active part of covering up, again, the dead president of the United States.
I'm just curious as to whether or not this kind of trying to hide what was happening with the president at the time had an impact on the press corps. Like, why didn't we hear some of these details from what they actually saw?
Gee, why? Why were CNN and MSNBC and Axios and Vox and Bloomberg and the Los Angeles Times and the New York Times and the Washington Post and all of these other outlets around the country, why did they not only say nothing about Joe Biden's decline, why did they actively go after not just conservatives, but you had people like Nate Silver on the left who were like, guys, he's dead. And so, you know, in a show of good faith, Nate Silver then got pseudo-canceled by the left for, again, pointing out that, hey, the dude's clearly dead. What's going on? So why didn't we hear about this, Jake? How come?
And we're dealing with trying to get information.
Well, Alex Thompson and I were on the case, as were lots of other reporters, trying to figure out what was going on behind the scenes.
Guys, they were on the case. It was like Zoink Scoob. Oh, the president's not looking too good. Right, Reggie? He looks a little bit, dementia.
But the bottom line is the White House was lying, not only to the press, not only to the public, but they were lying to members of their own cabinet.
No, I for one am shocked.
They were lying to White House staffers. They were lying to Democratic members of Congress, to donors about how bad things had gotten. And in fact, Alex and I started writing this book after the election of 2024, and we spoke with more than 200 people, most of whom, almost all of whom, were Democrats, and almost all of whom wouldn't be honest with us or wouldn't be candid with us until after the election. And then after the election, we found out all of these things that when you looked at what was going on with President Biden at the time, it probably doesn't surprise you the extent to which he was deteriorating.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now, of course, a couple of years ago, Jake Tapper out here pretending that he and Alex Thompson were, come, my dear Alex Thompson, the game's afoot. You know, out there Sherlock Holmesing around, Columbo and Matlock out there discovering the truth. And it turns out that when you do roll back the footage, you see a familiar face. Not just saying, well, we don't have any data or information on this, but objectively, actively, passionately heaping scorn and anger on anyone who would dare question the sanity of Joe Biden. Who is this man? Who?
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have no. This is so amazing. It's so amazing to me
and try and figure out.
Okay, so we've got a few things off the bat here from Jake Tapper, the same dude who now is like, how could no one have reported such a thing? We were on the case as independent investigative journalismers. I'll tell you how. You can see, number one, that he says, how does it make kids with stutters feel? Remember, Joe Biden apparently had a stutter. Now, nowhere in his entire Senate career, or even now when he's lucid, does he stutter. He never has. That's not a stutter. So he tries to make her sound evil. And then when she says he, the president at the time, was clearly experiencing a cognitive decline, he goes, oh, come on. And now he's going to suggest she has no proof and that she's a bad, stinky, bad person.
An answer.
A cognitive decline. President Biden embraces his stutter, talking about it, while Trump mocks it, exaggerates it, belittles it. He's sharp physically. I mean, mentally. Yeah. I think the question is physically, right? Right. More so? Right.
Oh, yeah. See, the issue is just that he could walk up some stairs. I mean, he's really just FDR rolling around. I mean, come on. He's sharp as a tack. That's why President Sisi has long served the Mexican people next to Israel.
Right, and the guy who's his chief opponent is only 3 or 4 years younger than him. Exactly. I mean, you have questioned President Biden's age, mental fitness, ability to lead. Of those supporting Biden, you said, quote, shame on all of you pretending everything is okay. You're leading us and him into a disaster. Do you worry that you damaged him at all? I don't doubt that you got hugs and handshakes behind closed doors today, and maybe even publicly, some of them because they like you personally. But I've heard a lot of really nasty stuff about you from your Democratic colleagues. Sure. I mean, just like, what is he thinking? Exercise in narcissism. I mean, false claims to the Wall Street Journal about President Biden's mental fitness and acuity. He's 81, and his memory, it doesn't seem great. It's not horrible, but I don't understand the outrage. Quote.
So the video goes on, believe it or not. It's a very well put together kind of summary of the number of times. Again, Jake Tapper wasn't just sitting on the sidelines watching it and said nothing. Which, by the way, I was told a journalistic ethical responsibility is to not leave stories that are big out there, kind of like when the Washington Post and NPR decided not to talk about the Hunter Biden laptop story right before the election. I'm not just talking about that, but how Jake Tapper overtly, clearly, passionately defended those saying Biden was fine and attacked as a proxy anyone who would dare question Joe Biden. How dare you attack children with stutters, you rascal? Amazing. Good luck with this, by the way. Very good luck with it. So that brings us over to the big, beautiful bill, better than any other bill ever, maybe in history. This would be the major financial package put forward by Ways and Means. It is time, in fact, we have looked through the data, and I have forced producer Daniel to stay up long, arduous hours, sweating through this 300-something page monstrosity to talk a little bit about what this does. So it permanently enshrines most of the 2017 Donald Trump individual tax cuts, things like rates, standard deduction, pass-through relief, and it adds targeted deductions for tips, for overtime, and for seniors, like with Social Security. It also funds border security and modest welfare integrity measures. So the claims that Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare were going to be scalped, gutted, and left for dead, not true. Now, there is some bad here. It does swell the deficit by roughly $4.5 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, I'm going to say two things. Number one, that is in fact bad. That is not a good thing. And a lot of Republicans on the populist side of the aisle who are now doing like a soft socialism, suggesting that big spending is actually fantastic and wonderful and we'll figure it out on the back end. No, that's not true. Number two, this was going to happen anyway. Republicans haven't actually cared about fiscal responsibility for a long time. Democrats haven't actually cared about fiscal policy in their entire existence. So, I mean, it was coming anyway. I think those that are running around clutching pearls and saying, oh, how could the Republicans have stabbed us in the back like this? Like you didn't know it was coming. The United States is likely just going to have to default in like 10 years. We'll have to go to some really serious austerity measures that will automatically kick in, and that's just going to have to be the way that it is. So as a non-piece of financial advice, hedge a part of your personal investment, as in this is what I'm doing, a little bit in silver, a little bit in ammunition. Just good things to have bulk amounts of. Now, the Democrats are going to suggest, as they already have started, that, oh man, Medicaid's going to be cut from people who don't meet certain requirements, and you can't spend food stamp money on the 18-pound box of Twinkies anymore. Is there no decency? All right, best of luck with that. Best of luck with that. I hope that line goes the way that you think it will, because right now it appears that this big, beautiful bill is in fact going to do a lot to keep entitlement plans in place, and a couple of tax cuts as well. Is it a phenomenal bill? Kind of remains to be seen in how it's effectuated. It's going to head through the Senate, of course, then to the president's desk. That brings us last but not least here. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on. To the Trump and Qatar jet updates and scandal. So, as you may remember, I haven't gone into complete depth on the show about this one in particular because I wanted to see how certain things played out up at the outset. Meaning that when I saw Jonathan Karl from ABC News wrote this big expose about how the Trump administration was planning to accept a personal gift from Qatar, this big $400 million 747 as a beautiful gift just for Trump, I said, Jonathan Karl's bad at his job. He's been caught lying mucho grande times, as have the journalists over at ABC News. And I read into the story, and I noticed the hallmark of investigative columnists that don't exactly follow the standards of decent journalism. Some things that were glossed over and didn't quite match the headline. One of these is that, yes, it is in fact a Qatari gift suggested to the Department of Defense because Boeing can't handle its contracts. Boeing sucks. Boeing had this contract back during the Obama years. They can't build the jet. Air Force One is over 40 years old. And yeah, it makes sense for the Trump administration to take a foreign gift like this for use in the Department of Defense. Now, the smarter move would be to say after it served its purpose as Air Force One and Boeing finally gets around to figuring some things out and actually gets the plane finished, number one, Boeing should not get another contract for a long, long, long time. And number two, the jet should then be either sold to a private entity or should be given back to Qatar. There's no reason it needs to go to the presidential Trump library project. That would be a truth. Number two, Qatar is not in fact a benevolent, wonderful power. And those suggesting, A, that the Trump administration is being bought out by Qatar, I think is way overblown. Trump never has once minded his ego being stroked. If you think that's new, welcome to politics. My name's Tony Kinnett, and we've been here a while. Number two, or three, I should say, and most importantly, regarding this particular deal, Qatar is not a good power, and anything that is sent over to an American contractor out of Florida, not just straight over from the Qatar shipyards, needs to be thoroughly, triply, and quadruply checked for any kind of surveillance. Gut the thing. That's common sense. And senators like Senator Ted Cruz, who raised concerns about some kind of Trojan horsey style situation, do in fact have a valid concern, a valid claim. And I think that should be looked at. The last point here, kind of as a bonus, a PS, the Qatar Defense Agency and the Trump administration's Pentagon have made it very clear there's no deal finalized yet at all whatsoever. Trump floats things all the time in front of people before any kind of deal is made. That's how he gauges polling and support for things. So, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the scandal on that one as much as everyone else is. That, of course, doesn't stop Chuck Schumer from acting like Michael Scott and declaring bankruptcy. This is probably one of my favorite clips of Chuck Schumer. That's saying something because, again, the Chuck Schumer seeing people aroused clip is one of the top 10.
I'm about to go to the floor to announce I am holding up all political DOJ appointments until we get answers to this corrupt deal between Donald Trump and the Qataris over his plane.
Okay, Good luck with that, Chuck. I can't help but notice you're the Senate Minority Leader. I also can't help but notice it was under your big buddy Harry Reid's leadership that you decided to nuke the original 60 vote necessity for things like appointments. Your party, when you were in the Senate, decided to go with a nuclear option, meaning 51 votes is all that's needed. In fact, just to remind everyone for the umpteenth time, one of my favorite clips that I like to play on the show is when Mitch McConnell, in his heyday, reminded Harry Reid, if you go with the nuclear option, you will regret it, and sooner than you think.
Say to my friends on the other side of the aisle, you'll regret this, and you may regret it a lot sooner than you think.
And here we are yet again. Chuck Schumer can cry, stamp his feet, but again, like Michael Scott, I declare bankruptcy. It means nothing. Nothing. So we're going to scoot over from this to a Senator Marshall interview. It's a really great new bill that the Senate's actually putting forward while Chuck Schumer is stamping his feet. A bill to provide longer-term support options that the Biden administration essentially canceled for angel families, families who have been affected by the violence caused by illegal immigrants. And given that that's a national security issue, yes, the United States government, when it fails to protect citizens from illegal aliens, should absolutely help in the recovery of the families affected by it. So we're going to head over to Senator Marshall from Kansas in just a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Feels like I'm losing it.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Great, of course, to be joined by Dr. and Senator Marshall of Kansas. Always great to have a guy out from the Sunshine State. Thanks, sir.
Hey, Tony, it's great to be with you today. I think we got some great topics to discuss.
Well, let's hop right into those. The first is a bill that I'm really looking forward to seeing. It's a codification in a way. It's an expansion of a Trump policy from his first term that a lot of Americans are really passionate about. So I've kind of teed it up for you there, hit it out of the park.
Yeah. So, the issue here is the loved ones of what we call angel families, folks that had a loved one that was murdered by an illegal alien. And basically that those loved ones are not eligible for some funding to help pay for funeral expenses, health care, those types of things. So essentially we want to make them eligible for that. And then to codify this program that President Trump set up to help those families as well, to get them the proper counseling and the social type of help that they need as well.
And there's a lot of ways that you could take this. I think one of the key facets of this bill that I find kind of long overdue is that this is, in essence, a national security issue. The United States government promises its citizens that it will protect and defend them from foreign threats. But then when a foreign threat causes them severe harm, obviously physically, with medical expenses, with funeral expenses through horrible crimes like we've seen with individuals like Laken Riley, all of a sudden, what does it stop becoming a national security issue that the government should step in and assist angel families in this way, as though we would, again, in a situation where there was a foreign threat outside the United States? This makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does. And, let's stop and celebrate the good news here. When President Trump was elected, the number one most immediate national security threat our country faced was the open southern border. And there was 10 or 15,000 people crossing that border every day. And now over the last month, it's less than 300 a day. There was a couple of days, I think it was 2 or 3 people crossed the border illegally as well. But unfortunately, there are hundreds of thousands of violent, illegal, criminal aliens in the country. Now, to President Trump's credit, I think he's already deported 130,000. There's more work to do. In the meantime, these criminal aliens are committing crimes, violent crimes. And I think DUIs is something I see every day. I just was reviewing a case recently where a illegal alien killed a family in a car as well. So this law that we have helps out those families. For every Laken Riley, there's dozens of other people that have been murdered by violent, illegal criminal aliens. A lot of them, again, is the DUI issue as well. Those loved ones are often left with funeral bills, with large hospital bills as well. And this just helps a little bit of a bridge for that family. And to your point, to take responsibility that we didn't keep our family safe.
I think that that's the kind of basic action that's missing from Congress most often. We hear about a lot of great executive orders or programs that came either in the first Trump administration or in this administration. And we say, great, well, how long are those particular programs or these particular maneuvers going to be around? And the common answer is, well, until the next president comes in, if that's from a different party and changes a lot of things or reverses executive orders or allows certain programs to run out. Congress needs to codify some of these programs into law. You need to see, again, like you have in this bill, the Victims of Crime Act of 1984 amended to include new things. You need some codification.
Exactly, and that's easier said than done, Tony. I wish I could say, oh, this is an easy task. Remember, on the Senate, it's going to take 60 votes to get something like this done. Elections do have consequences. We have 53 Republicans. We'll do it. It's hard to imagine. Can you imagine? I can't find 7 Democrats to vote for this, but we'll see. We'll do our best. And just to emphasize, even just through the last term, Joe Biden ended this opportunity where there was counseling available, let alone some money to help with. So it will go away with the Democrat president as well. But in the meanwhile, we'll do our best. We'll try to find enough oxygen here to get past a reconciliation bill and get some things like this done.
It was really interesting after the Laken Riley Act was passed, the media, kind of the CNN, MSNBC corporate legacy crew, tried to get these town halls together where these representatives on the left side of the aisle who voted in favor of the Laken Riley Act were trotted out to do almost a 1984 Oceana, I'm very sorry that I did this. I regret my vote for this 80-20 issue. Do you think that Democrats are even going to be allowed by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries to voice support for, again, it's not some multi-trillion-dollar package. It's a common sense national security and reconciliation measure.
Yeah, Tony, the Democrats are in a hole and they won't stop digging. This is another 80-20 issue to your point here, and they just won't stop digging. So, and they are very much controlled by their senior management, so to speak. They control the purse strings. They'll be threatened to be primaried, and they'll be threatened to have their money taken away from them as well. And this is where people ask me, where did Nancy Pelosi's power come from? She was the best ever at just kneecapping people if they ever got out of line with her as well. So I think it'll be very hard to get it across the finish line. But nevertheless, I want to get them on record. I want to get the Democrats on record. One more thing, so when the people are up for re-election, we can point to this and say, they say one thing, they do another. They say they care about your safety, but here's one more example of them not caring about the safety of your loved ones.
And that's one of the things I wanted to pivot this to. There's a lot of issues right now that you see the opposition power, the Democrats, are currently trying to reframe their focus, and they're struggling deeply. They're so stuck on the Maryland man, or they're stuck on the LGBTQ plus whatever side of issues. Again, these 20 side of the 80-20 issues. And they are starting to try to get out and explain themselves, because otherwise they can't get any media attention. We are starting to actually see Democrats, I think of Chris Murphy, for example, go on record and defend their policy on men and women's sports. But I'm curious to see is whether they will be forced to take a stand on something, again, like reconciliation and restitution for angel families, because that's the kind of thing that really, really burnt Democrats, not as a political lever like that was the intention, but it did burn Democrats right before the election in 24 to stand against common sense measures against illegal immigration.
Yeah, Tony, if you're explaining, you're dying up here. And Republicans are guilty of this as well, and we need to keep going on the offensive. I think that the emphasis to me right now is promises made, promises kept. If President Trump was in this conversation today right now, he would say, and he's looked at me more than once, said, Roger, I campaign number one, more than anything else, more than the economy, was securing the border and making your family safe. And we just can't point out enough to people. It didn't take legislation. Now we need legislation, and I have confidence in President Trump. Maybe the third or fourth year we could go back and fix a broken immigration system. But in the meantime, part of this one big beautiful bill is $50 billion to finish the wall. And then beyond that, there's another $50 billion for raises for our Border Patrol and bonuses for those as well. I'm going to go down there here in the next couple of weeks and salute our troops that are down there. We have about 1,000 Army soldiers from Fort Riley, Kansas down there helping secure our border as well. So we can't emphasize enough. Promises made, promises kept. We did what we said we're going to do. Now it's Congress's job to do our job. President Trump has secured the border for now, but we need to give him the money to finish building the wall and give him and Secretary Noem the people that they need to secure that border long term as well.
Let me ask you about that really quickly, just because the Senate is such a key part. It's the key part of the confirmation process. You see hundreds of nominees trotted before the Senate to be confirmed to federal positions. What's your opinion of how Kristi Noem is doing so far as the Secretary of Homeland Security?
Well, Kristi's obviously a great communicator. And I think that's one thing that I think that she does better than most people is to show America this is exactly what we're doing. She's tough as nails. I'm telling you, she's one of the toughest people I've ever met in my lifetime. She's doing a great job. And I think she's got good people surrounding her. And I'm looking forward to go down there and shake some of these men and women's hands and say thank you for helping keep our families safe.
Last question here before I let you go, because I am also one of the crew that likes to see Congress at work when they're on the clock and not talking to guys like me all day. The last question that I have for you: do you think that there are going to be further measures in the next couple of years that start reducing kind of the long-term reliance on executive orders instead of just seeing an executive order passed and then hope it gets codified? How do you see maybe the Senate or the House start to bring power and a little bit of energy back to Congress, if at all?
Yeah, so I would start for, our promises made, promises kept. We just finished up, I believe, our 14th Congressional Review Act. And again, this is something that has to be done about within 6 months of the previous president writing rules. And it only takes 50 votes in the Senate. And we rescinded 14 major orders, regulatory orders of Joe Biden, rolling back regulations, helping set American energy free, help setting American business free as well. So that's one thing that we have done. Rescission packages are the other opportunity. Rescission, what the DOJ work has done here, to turn that into law, it takes a rescission package. The White House has to initiate it. It only takes 50 votes as well. And then beyond that, let's see, right now the Democrats are still in their death and dying stages of grief. They're still, they're angry, total denial as well. But hopefully going forward, they'll come out of some of that denial and we'll find 7 or 10 moderate Democrats to walk across the line and help us out as well. So I think it is a tough job. The Democrats do an amazing job of sticking together. They're lemmings. Now, and people criticize Republicans that we don't always just fall in line, but that's what people love about us, is that we are free spirits as well. And we're gonna stick to our values.
Yeah, there is that ideological diversity in the Republican Party, but I don't know. I think the way things are going, there might be a more independent member or two in the Senate, the way that some of the Democrats from Pennsylvania, for example, are being treated by their own party. So, Senator Marshall, thank you so much for taking a minute to join us. Thank you also for introducing this bill. Hope that it gets the support that it needs for, again, angel families who have suffered at the hands of illegal immigrants.
Tony, thanks so much for having me. Everyone be safe. Let's make America great again.
We'll be back in a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Before we head over to Stephen Kent for a little What You Watchin' and the burning down of the streaming services, I have a few quick news reactions for you, because believe it or not, there are more than a few really awful, atrocious, horrible, stinky, terrible clips from around the internet that producer Nick, producer Daniel, producer Lou have set before me like a decrepit king they are trying to poison. And so, up first, again, remember, Representative LaMonica McIver, Timu Jasmine Crockett, who body slammed, according to the words of the Department of Homeland Security, a federal officer trying to storm Delaney Hall, an ICE facility in New Jersey. AOC has decided it's time to take off the earrings and join the fight. And so she has come out with a video because, again, a couple of Democrats in New Jersey embarrassing themselves isn't enough. Here's AOC just issuing some threats towards federal officers.
And now what DHS is trying to say, again, they're using public intimidation because they know that they cannot come for us all.
I'm just going to right off the bat here point out how much I loathe the, okay, guys, here's the tea. My hand is drawing lines in the air because I have the tea. They can't come for us all because I'm doing these choppy hand motions.
They know that they cannot come for us all. And recently what they said is that DHS is allegedly looking into arresting members of Congress.
For what? For what, AOC? What perchance? Per happenstance? Per some other kind of stance? What OG, oh wow, OG Willikers? Would perhaps the Department of Homeland Security, be considering a little bit of an investigation into? Would it perhaps be Representative LaMonica McIver doing this? There she is. Oh, would it be that shove? Or maybe this weird belly shove into the federal officer? Wow, I can't believe that someone would be considering an arrest for assaulting a law enforcement officer. Oh no.
Who were showing up for their legal and constitutional obligation to conduct oversight.
Nope. I'm going to actually look up right now here. Hold on. House Committee Oversight. The House Committee on Oversight and Accountability. Members. All right, let's see here. Democratic members. All right, we've got, Jasmine Crockett, Summer Lee's on there. Oh, that's weird. I'm not seeing LaMonica Ivor on here. I'm also not seeing Bobby Menendez Jr. or Coleman What's-Her-Face. I'm not seeing any of that. I'm shocked. But even so, the particular right that she's referencing, according to the law, you have to give notice to the facility. You can't just show up and, like Michael Scott, declare bankruptcy. That's not a thing.
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security.
How? So far, I've seen assault and congressmen and women not following the law. Neither of those from the Department of Homeland Security, who look like every exasperated man trying to do his job.
It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on someone, on Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, on Representative...
She can't remember the names of the other two representatives.
or any of the representatives that were there, you lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem.
Okay, so that's a threat. All right, so what I really enjoy is Representative, and I'll help AOC out here. Hold on just a moment here. LaMonica McIver and Senators Menendez's son, Representative Rob Menendez Jr. Okay, good job. Now give me 5. Okay, so AOC's inability to remember them, the whole, if you lay a hand on them, to quote AOC when she was getting in a fight with either Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene, I can't remember, baby girl. Yeah, who was laying a finger on people? That would be McIver when she was busting in like the Kool-Aid man, knocking over and knocking into, again, as DHS confirmed, not just male federal officials, but also like female federal officials who she is in fact bigger than. So nothing like a little intimidation as well. So great job, AOC. Moving right along. This one, you have this one titled Transgender Upgrades.
Salam, everyone. I just gotta ask, who's cosplaying? See, cosplaying is when you dress up as something that you aren't or someone you aren't.
So people who are listening to the audio, this is this is a chubby white dude wearing lipstick and the Islamic lady's headdress.
I am a Muslim woman. I wear what a Muslim woman wears. I dress like that. So who's cosplaying here?
My dude, you have a weenie. You would be hanged in every single Muslim majority country. Every single one of them. Cosplaying. I think your priorities are a bit misplaced.
I think you need to learn the words that you're trying to use because they ain't working for you.
Says the guy who started out by going, Slam. Salam is not just Salem. Amazing. That was a good one. That hurt me in multiple ways. All right, this next one I'm bringing to the table. This is the legendary Scott Jennings, CNN extraordinaire and future senator of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, laying out Ashley Allison, who has decided to make the point that actually we don't want any of those white refugees.
So if the Afrikaners don't actually like the land, they can leave that country.
They are. They're leaving to come here.
No. They can
These refugees are coming here.
They can actually leave and go to where their native land is, which is probably Germany.
Are you against them coming here?
Holland. Holland.
Are you against them coming here?
I'm against the hypocrisy of this administration.
No, that's not the question. The question is, are you against them coming here?
If there was actually a genocide happening, like there is in other places in Sudan, in the Congo, I'm not opposed for Congolese and for the Sudanese to come to Africa, just like I'm not opposed to Venezuelans
to come to Africa. You know, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone leave Sudan and be like, you know where I need to go? South Africa. I've never seen that.
And South Americans coming to America if they are fleeing and looking for asylum. What I am
just
against,
these 50 people you're
I am against, it's not about being against them. What I am against is that they are being given special treatment when there is not a genocide happening in South Africa, and they just don't like the law of the land. Well, so you know what they tell me?
Okay. I love well, if they don't like it, they can leave. Can you imagine during Jim Crowism, when black people in the United States were being discriminated against? If they don't like it, they can just head to Liberia if they don't like it here so much. Man, those inches, they do be resting. Interesting indeed. All right. We apparently also have some Republicans who are dating, quote, trans women, end quote.
My name's Corey, and I'm a Republican dating a trans woman. The current Republican views on trans people is not great. What they're trying to put into law is, I think they just changed the LGBTQ plus community. That's now just, I think, LGB now.
I'm sorry, what law has enacted specific communities? They're acting like the Trump administration walked out and Tom Homan just started cutting stripes off of the flag. You can have these back when you behave. Also, dude, you're just gay. You're dating a trans one. Dude, you're dating a man. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a right to date a man if you want, but you just need to come to terms with that, my dude. You're not dating a woman, you're just gay. Quit lying to yourself, man. If that's something that's for you, then that's your own choice, your own life, whatever. But I don't know about that, buddy. All right, moving right along here. This next one, if you voted for Trump, consequences. Oh boy.
If you voted for Republicans, you should have your voting rights suspended at least one election. You don't get the chance to do it again. You can earn it back, though. You got to take some classes or something, but no. We're going to give you the wheel twice.
That man's gap in his front teeth is aligned with the weird gap in his mustache he's never groomed.
Don't let them just silently take their flags down and stop talking about politics.
Who are the Trump people who have taken down their flags? Usually the ones taking down American flags are the left.
Get the voter rolls. See who they voted for. Turn off their rights.
Turn off their rights. Okay, neck-bearded man. Thank you for your wonderful discussion on civics. I can't help but notice your party's not in power. I wonder why. I happen to find that rather strange. Last one. This is an extra special one. There's nothing else with this. That makes me very nervous to click on this. Allison, you might have your hand on the beat button just in case.
You didn't vote for Trump, I take it?
No, I voted for Harris Waltz like a normal person. And I'll take the L. I can't even believe that we lost. I can't even believe it. What the are you thinking? Stop ruining your own country. Jesus Christ. Like he gives a shit about any of you. If you think for a second that he would do anything for you, you are so wrong.
There is so much angry, rejected ex energy coming from this one. Is this real? What on earth is one of the munchkins from The Wizard of Oz who is in a punk band telling me that someone doesn't care about? I don't remember recalling asking for anyone to care about me.
He doesn't give a shit about you. I don't know why you give a shit about him. You shouldn't.
Oh, yes. Moral lessons from Hot Topic. Oh boy.
I think it has to do with you see him getting away with all his bad and you think that maybe there's a chance for you to get away with your bad. Take a look at yourself.
Take a look at yourself. All right.
Take a look at yourself. Gross.
Okay. That's real special. I'm not wearing black lipstick and in a weird tube dress that's made from the last Great Gatsby poster.
Be good.
Ah, yes. The first thing that I tell people after I have finished saying that look at themselves, they're gross, they're terrible and evil. Be good. Yes.
Be good.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Jesus. That just came out of me. That just came out of me.
It sure did, honey. It sure did. Boy, I tell you, what a wonderful time. What a wonderful, wonderful time to have phones. It's a great thing that we shut down mental institutions in this country. The effects of that have just been stupendous. That will about do it for this particular episode, except for Stephen Kent up next. We're going to talk a little bit about the insanity currently going on with streaming services. You're not going to want to miss it. Some piracy, and I'm not talking about the kind in the Mediterranean. That's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett cast on 93 WIPC.
Closing time.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Joined by Stephen Kent, the Consumer Choice Center, also Geeky Stoics, one of the guys who knows a lot about the entertainment industry, which is why we bring him on for a little whatcha watchin'. Stephen, how's it going, man?
Going very well, Tony.
I'm curious, how many streaming services are you subscribed to?
4.
What are those for?
I have Paramount, HBO. I have Disney Plus. I'm sorry, conservative America, and Netflix.
We also have of Disney Plus. We no longer have Netflix. But then, of course, you can say the specialties. You got HBO. There's also, of course, Apple TV and Amazon Prime Videos, things, and all of these other services. When the streaming services came out, I was told, as we all were told, that this was going to be the replacement for cable, because you could just, for $10 a month, $5 a month, you could turn on Netflix, and then you could have all of the movies ever and a bunch of great TV shows too. And, if not, you could go find them other places. And this took piracy, which was becoming a really big deal before the 2010s because the internet was, of course, growing, and we had actually moved from a lot of different piracy services. It was getting a lot easier. Netflix made it so convenient and so cheap compared to the labor to watch movies. Piracy evaporated. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but streaming services have got wildly expensive for less and less and less and less product ever since.
Oh, well, that's definitely a multifaceted issue. And going back to your original question of how many do I have, this is now presenting me with the classic family budgeting conundrum, which is, as you named different streaming services, I remembered I have more than 5. There's definitely more. There's Amazon. I definitely still am linked up to Hulu. Oh man, it's getting out of control. So
somewhere Dave Ramsey is breaking out into a rash.
Yeah, my every dollar budget is screwed. So a lot of what is going on with these streaming platforms is that, this business model is built upon providing a glut of content as much as possible to keep these things afloat, to keep people coming back and not going to their rivals. And production ramped up largely internationally. You had a ton of studios take their productions overseas. Netflix is 75% shot overseas in either Europe or in South Korea. They have a glut of international content and English second language content coming to these platforms as well to keep people satisfied. That's why South Korean films have taken off so much.
The studios for these platforms themselves. I think you and I have talked about this offline, but the Netflix and the HBO and the Amazon originals and the Apple TV, my goodness, the Apple TV originals are some of the most high
I have Apple
budget.
TV too. Oh no.
Yeah, I was ready to say. I was surprised you didn't say Apple TV because that's one of the things you had suggested.
I have that too, Tony.
These streaming platforms all have their own in-studio productions, and they're not small-time, low-budget stuff. I mean, these things are just as big, if not bigger in many cases, than some of the traditional Hollywood studios.
Well, sure, that's absolutely the case. But, again, going back to keeping production costs low, Hungary and Romania and Ireland have built up these massive film studio properties that people from the United States can come and film on. Tons and tons of American projects are now shot overseas. Game shows that are shot in Ireland simply for a sound stage, not even for anything about the countryside of Ireland itself, but just because it's cheaper on labor and union costs and staff and crews and all that kind of stuff, tax incentives to shoot in these countries. So this business about the Trump administration wanting to impose tariffs on foreign films or things made outside of America is a really interesting subject because all of these streaming platforms are going to struggle immensely to feed their platforms if they have to bring their stuff back home. And then consumers get less choices when it comes to their streaming.
They do. I mean, I can tell you I know that you mentioned earlier that saying you had a Disney Plus membership would put you out with conservatives. A lot of you also really despise the show Friends. You guys think you're so special because you prefer Frasier or other higher brow
so
sitcoms.
Sophisticated.
Yeah, whatever. I think Friends is an excellent show. And there was a time where you had to follow it around. It was on Netflix, and then it was on Amazon, and then it was on back to Netflix, and then it was over to a different platform. I don't even know where it's at these days. And there's a lot of annoyance and inconvenience that's popped up because cable bills used to be, about $100, $110 a month if you had a nice premium sized package. Now, when you add up the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 streaming platforms in order to catch, For All Mankind over on Apple TV, which is my favorite Apple TV series, and then head over to Andor on Disney Plus, and then you got to swing back over to HBO for this show and Amazon Prime for that. I mean, there's got to be a point where you're almost wondering why you left cable. You're not even getting ad-free experiences anymore. You're getting ads throughout all of these. You can't skip them. Some of them, it doesn't even matter how premium you go. You're still getting advertisements. Commercials are back, baby.
I'm really rooting, Tony, for a future in which we can bundle these things back together again. At some point, these studios are going to have to stop competing in the way that they are and try to offer some bundles for consumers to actually save money. But you're right, we are back where we started. These things are now blowing up household budgets. People spend upwards of $150 per month on all of their streaming packages combined. It's not good. And especially if you have any sort of sports streaming options, complete catastrophe. So that is why you have HBO and Netflix both getting into the world of sports streaming and live events, because consumers do expect more and they do want to try to cut some of their other cable costs, which usually tend to include sports streaming.
Now, this is where I want to dig into the consumer choice side of your brain here. And I want to talk about why it's important that you put the customer experience as an organization at the height of your business model. The UI, making sure the menu is not hard to use, you making sure the content is readily available, and also not trying to scalp the people that you are, again, taking money from, is kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit with a lot of these companies. There's no way. I know you suggested this today, and we shoot a little text back and forth talking about what we're going to hit and what you're watching. You recommended My Friends and Neighbors on Apple Plus. Well, I finished For All Mankind. I'm no longer subscribed to Apple Plus. And how much is Apple Plus right now? How much is that?
You're asking me again, Dave Ramsey, to know how much I'm paying?
I am not going to pay $10 a month and then forget about it and then have it charge me for 2 or 3 months to watch like My Friends and Neighbors, a show that may be good or not. I don't know. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. People are, and this is not an endorsement, just to make this very clear. Studios wonder why, and streaming companies wonder why, according to several new articles and studies, pirated content has surged back 100-fold in 2024 and into 2025. The U.S. had 17.3 billion visits to piracy websites that we know of in 2024. Used to, that was Russia who held the crown. Now the U.S. is again turning to piracy. I just think it's because the customer service experience has completely fallen by the wayside. They think, just throw the slop at the piggies, they'll eat anyway.
Well, that certainly reminds me of what's going on with Nintendo and the Switch 2 console. I'm sure you've seen this, that right now Nintendo is taking a lot of fire for saying that they're going to enforce on consumers their terms of agreement, which actually allow them to effectively disable or turn off your Nintendo Switch product if you are backloading, again, pirated content online or patches to their games that are not Nintendo sanctioned, making any sort of modifications to the device outside of Nintendo's terms of service. They can brick your console, which means to turn it into a hunk of plastic that does nothing. I don't think most consumers believe that they're signing up for this kind of thing when they purchase a console, that it can be turned off on them.
So there's another facet to that. I'm really glad that you brought up the Nintendo situation. For those of you out there who don't play games, you're not really up to speed on the tech scene. A lot of video games that are released today are released half finished. They are very poorly made. They're made basically in order to sell the appeal of a very popular IP, a very popular series releasing a new game, and they release and they're not organized well. They aren't built well. They weren't debugged. There are several studios that have horrific reputations for this. And on a device like the Nintendo Switch, or what's coming out, the Nintendo Switch 2, they're not really built well either. And a lot of these games run poorly. So a lot of the modifications that are sent out are patches to make the game playable. Some modder, some independent coder who loves that game will release something to fix or to patch out the flaws in the game. And if Nintendo catches you using, again, something to fix the game, they will not only brick your console, they'll shut off any of your access to things that you have purchased from them on their store, which is, it's beyond bonkers.
It's dystopian, and there's something really, really important going on. And this is for everybody in your audience to understand about most tech that we use. There's this very niche issue in tech policy called right to repair laws, which is basically big companies negotiating with state governments whether or not consumers can fix things like their cars, like their tractors, like their iPhones, like their electronic devices, with providers, third parties that are not the actual company. So taking your console to a place that's not Nintendo, or taking your iPhone to a place that is not Apple to get it fixed or modified or something. And basically then that voids your warranty. And in some cases, Nintendo bricks your device and disables it entirely. Are we allowed to interact and master the machinery that we use in our everyday lives, or do we just have to consume? This is a really, really niche freedom issue that we're going to have to figure out before it's too late.
But it's not niche anymore. That's what's, again, some of these things were like kind of techie, small first world problems for a long time. But some of the costs, especially in this weird pseudo international economy that we've currently got going, if I want to not spend every cent that I make on ridiculous repair costs at only this dealership can repair this kind of car, and you need 850 kinds of subscriptions to even qualify for this kind of customer service, etc., then I need to learn to repair it myself. And I, who did not grow up a car guy, I have been fascinated. Actually, it was my old youth pastor, Jeremiah Clark, who encouraged me to essentially learn from YouTube. And now I can do and have done a lot of minor repairs on my car to keep mine and also the family's cars up and running. The way that these companies have started creating their devices, and this isn't new, you and I have talked about right to repair with Apple devices for a long time. I don't think that people quite understand how insanely some of these companies are manufacturing their devices, their equipment, so that they cannot be repaired, that planned obsolescence.
Tony, I think one of the areas that we can actually wrap up on here is this very topic was covered in Star Wars Andor Season 1. The rebellion against the Empire in that show focuses on this one kid named Nemec, who is very, very worried about how the Empire has trained the people of the galaxy to use technological devices like GPS for their spaceships that travel the galaxy, but they don't actually know how to fix it. And so the Empire can turn off people's GPS devices to navigate the whole galaxy at any given time. And he emphasizes to the hero of that show that we have to be able to manually operate and fix these devices. Otherwise, we are enslaved to the powers that be. And when you think about your GPS on your phone and your ability to navigate your own community or travel between one state to another, what happens if they turn off the lights? You need to be able to know where you're going. You need to be able to actually navigate your world, use maps, be self-sufficient. I'll get off my soapbox on that one.
No, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because some of the dystopian concerns that used to be relegated to something the nerds worried about is in fact becoming a core issue when people don't own the media that they purchase. Again, they're not renting it for like on a streaming service, right? You're renting access to the net. You have basically a Netflix library card. And while you have that card, while you're paying for that subscription, you can go to Netflix library and watch anything in the library. There are people who are purchasing things by like an actual sale. And then Amazon and iTunes used to do this in the early 2010s. When streaming services first started coming out, they canceled and revoked a lot of the licenses to certain things. That is becoming very real in real world products and projects. And as much a free market guy as I am, I think one small area that there should absolutely be an area of protectionism is protectionism from forced obsolescence. My Google Home over there, no longer, when I tell it to start a stopwatch, it says I can't do that anymore, because they want me to upgrade to the next newest Google device. That's an actual thing. They have changed the code. That's ridiculous. It's a stopwatch.
Reminds me of Game Boys from the 1990s, and every time they kept upgrading the Pokemon devices, and then you couldn't actually use your Pokemon Red, Silver, or Blue unless you got the new latest thing. They do this with game consoles. They do this with iPhones. They do this with Google software, all this kind of stuff. They keep you in this hamster wheel of buying more and more and more. I mean, even my iPhone right now has a C port, and that's largely been done because the European Union wanted universal charging ports on the phones. But then what happens? All of us at some point end up with obsolete devices that worked yesterday and don't work tomorrow.
Oh, we can tie this around so perfectly into news currently going on. Airlines, air traffic control. When things are allowed to languish and kind of run on their own tech and they haven't been cared for, and all of the new tech has been built on these weird proprietary systems, all of a sudden, they're like, man, we need to replace some of the radar equipment at Newark. Nope. Sorry, that's not compatible with the newest system from Cessna's radar or GPS monitoring. The frustration. This is why I like talking to you. There's something about getting into some of these issues and accidentally bumping into other things that are, in fact, not just naturally presto solved by saying ignore it and it'll get better.
I think this is why people listen to the Joe Rogan show. It's just people at a bar stool just talking from one subject to the next. That's what we do here on What You Watching.
Hey, Jamie, go ahead and run that clip back for us.
Oh, pull it up, Jamie.
Anyway, Stephen Kent, thank you so much for hopping on, talking about this a little bit. I know we didn't get to talk about Andor. That was on purpose. I have not finished it yet. And while I'm in Dallas this week, I'm going to binge the entire season. We'll talk about it next week.
We'll get you up to speed. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks very much for stopping by this evening. We'll be back tomorrow with an interview with Kurt Schlichter of townhall.com, a long, very based conversation just to you that just might get me canceled. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.